What's in a motor? Gets you from A to B, right? And most car drivers don't care or even understand how it's configured and how it works. When a majority of people buy cars, they care about adequate power and fuel economy. But cars are mostly purchased by regular folks. There are a few car nuts out there who will only drive a V8 or an Inline Four turbo, but for the most part, engine architecture does not matter to the average driver. Not so with motorcycles.
Meet the guys who know their motors, and the gals who know their guys.
When you say get acquainted, you really mean it, don't you?
People who ride motorcycles are generally much more knowledgeable about how their air-fuel mixture is transformed into forward momentum, and are quite aware that different configurations will lead to vastly different power characteristics and riding experiences. So when it comes to pushing your two-wheel death machine forward, we have the Thumper, the Parallel Twin, V-Twin, Flat Four, Flat Six, V4, Triple, Inline Four, and even an Inline Six. I'll leave out the V8 since this is a niche motorcycle engine configuration that has never been produced in any serious numbers. What are the differences between these engine types, you may ask? Well, in this video we'll examine the different power delivery, sound, feel, and applications of the various types of motorcycle engines, and how they affect the characters and riding experiences of the motorcycles that use them. So whether you like them thumping, growling, or screaming, saddle up, hit that subscribe button, bell, like button, brap that throttle, and let's get to it. Before we look at engine configurations, I should mention that performance and sound is also affected by the type of cooling an engine employs, but those differences fall outside the purview of this video. Here we'll focus on the generalities of power delivery and exhaust note. So the single cylinder was the most common engine architecture in early motorcycles. One piston attached to a heavy crankshaft thumping away and propelling the bike forward with evenly spaced power pulses. Simple, light, and easy to work on, these motors are best known for having lots of low down torque from the momentum of the crank, and for being cheap to run and maintain. What they generally do not have is a lot of horsepower. This is because they can't rev as high as multi-cylinder engines of similar displacement due to the vibration produced by the big cylinder and heavy crank. This vibration, incidentally, tends to generally limit these engines to under 700 cc. Singles are perfect for inexpensive small motorcycles and scooters because of this engine configuration's low cost and easy maintenance. But they're also perfect for off-road motorcycles because on dirt, high horsepower numbers don't count for as much as that stump-pulling torque which allows you to carry your momentum up steep hills and crawl over rocks while maintaining traction. You want the engine which accelerates slower than the four-cylinder screamer so the back tire is not constantly losing traction, but once moving keeps chugging along over obstacles. Sound? Here I am riding a Royal Enfield Himalayan. And so we come to the V-Twin, perhaps the most storied motorcycle engine configuration. From the Indians and Harleys that rumbled down American roads for over a century, to the Moto Guzzis that took on the curves in the mountains of Italy, to the Ducatis that dominated tracks around the world, to KTM and every Japanese manufacturer adopting that configuration in latter years. Just a few years ago, it seemed like V-Twins would become the dominant engine architecture in the world of motorcycling. Take two singles, stick them to each other like Siamese twins, and bam, you're good to go. The angles at which the cylinders sit generally vary between 40 and 90 degrees, with the 90-degree variety often referred to as L-twins. Most but not all V-twins employ a single crankpin, giving them a characteristic lumpy sound which fans of these bikes prefer to engines with a more even firing order. The angle of the cylinders also affects sound and vibration, with a 45-degree Harley engine having that characteristic potato-potato sound and heavy vibes. And a 90-degree engine like a Ducati being a little bit more growly and less shaky. Of course, the vibes of any engine can be reduced with rubber mounting and counterbalancers. Advantages of V-twins: besides the cool sound, they have plenty of low down torque but can rev higher than singles, so they have more power, and they're nice and narrow because the cylinders are located in a line. Unless you're on a Moto Guzzi like my old Stelvia, which placed the engine longitudinally in the frame with the cylinders sticking out the sides. This is a funky design, perfect for use with a shaft drive and also good in cold temperatures where the air-cooled cylinders warm up your legs. Lately, however, V-twins have been on the decline and parallel twins have been on the rise. With KTM expanding their offerings to the 490, 790, and 890 displacements, they decided to opt for the more compact and lower to the ground parallel twins. Likewise, Suzuki is looking to replace the iconic SV650 with a parallel twin, as they have filed a patent for a new engine. Even Ducati is swapping out their big L twins, although in their case it's for a V4. But back to the parallel twins, because this is an engine combination that has been around for a while. Brands like Triumph and Royal Enfield have used the parallel twin and still do, and many folks don't know that the world's first production motorcycle, the 1894 Hildebrand and Wolfmueller, sported a 1489cc parallel twin which produced a whopping 2.5 horsepower. Now, early parallel twins used a 360-degree crankshaft, with each cylinder firing while the other was completing its exhaust stroke. Later, most manufacturers went to the 180-degree crank in order to smooth out vibration. This configuration is used today in bikes like the Kawasaki Ninja 650 and 400 and the Honda CB500 line. These engines were often accused of lacking soul when compared to the lumpy sound of a 90-degree V-twin, so some manufacturers decided to switch to a 270-degree crank, which emulates the firing order and low-end torque of the traditional V. Bikes like the newer Triumph Bonnevilles, KTM 790s, Africa Twins, Royal Enfield 650s, and my own Yamaha Tenere 700 utilize this 270-degree design. The advantage of a parallel twin over a V-twin is that the engine can be located more forward and lower, enabling for a shorter wheelbase and longer swing arm. This can make the bike turn faster on the track or absorb bumps better off-road. Also, sharing a cylinder wall and head makes the engine lighter and less expensive to produce. Injectors and exhausts can be simpler and more compact as well. Its only real disadvantages over the V-twin are looks and width. Let's move on to another classic engine configuration, and that's the flat twin, a design in which the two cylinders point outward in opposite directions. Most of these engines are boxers, engines in which the pistons move in and out together and are longitudinally mounted in the frame. The manufacturer most heavily associated with this engine design is BMW. This company has been making boxers forever, and judging by how many they sell, they're not likely to stop until the European nanny states outlaw the internal combustion engine. The advantages of this engine are that it's smooth, perfectly positioned for use with shaft drive, and sits lower in the frame, making the motorcycle feel much lighter than it is. Also, if you have engine guards and drop the bike, it doesn't ever fully go over on its side, but sits at an angle, making it easier to pick up. Finally, like on the Moto Guzzi, those big cylinders warm your feet on a cold day. Incidentally, another quirk the BMW and Guzzis share is the torque reaction due to the spin of the crankshaft. Twist the throttle and feel those bikes pull to the side. Disadvantages? Drop this bike without putting on engine guards and you're replacing the head. Also, when the seat is tall, your feet fit neatly behind the cylinders. However, when the seat is low, as on a cruiser, your hips get jammed up as you're perched in a very uncruiser-like position. I'm looking at you, R18. I'll never stop picking on that bike. The flat motor configuration can also be used with 4 or 6 cylinders, and has most notably been the engine of choice of Honda Goldwing riders. Again, these engines sit low to the ground and are known for their unparalleled smoothness. This makes them perfect for covering huge miles without tiring out their riders. Advantages: smoothness, power, and refinement. Disadvantages: I've ridden a 1500cc Goldwing over 20 years ago and remember thinking that it felt like driving a car. It was too refined. Getting back to the V configuration for a second, let's talk about the V4, because this engine has recently regained some of its popularity. Originally, it was Honda and Yamaha flying the V4 flag, but more recently both Aprilia and Ducati have put these motors in their superbikes in an effort to gain power through increasing revs. Mostly these motors do well in sporty applications with high power output, but V4s tend to be narrower and produce more torque than Inline Fours. The downside? Like the V-twin, the V4 is longer and more expensive and complicated to build. 2 heads, 2 exhaust manifolds, 2 camshafts, ultimate performance ain't cheap. Firing order can vary and so can sound, from a typical soulful V4 growl to the Ducati, which sounds like a V-twin because its pistons replicate the V-twin firing order. Speaking of sport bikes, we're back to the parallel configuration with the Inline Four, which has been a mainstay in high-performance motorcycling since Honda dropped the CB750 on the world, literally killing the British motorcycle industry and almost doing the same to Harley. Inline Fours are all about power and revs. Fairly tame low in the rev range, these bikes come alive and try to jump out from underneath you when you wind them up. The sound is an angry howl. Inline 4 engines are generally only used in sporty bikes and deliver big power with lower amounts of torque. By the by, Yamaha has used a cross-plane crank on their R1, which gives the bike a very unique sound. Weaknesses? Inline 4s are wide, as the cylinders are typically arranged transversely. Unless you harken back to the BMW flying bricks of yesteryear, where the Bavarians laid their motor on its side and shoehorned it into the bike longitudinally. Or the Indians, which fit them in standing upright. An engine related to the Inline 4 is the Inline 6, which has been historically used by Honda, but is currently only employed in the BMW K touring bikes. Very smooth and immensely powerful, inordinately wide and stupendously expensive, this engine makes sense in a huge luxury touring bike and nowhere else. Finally, we come to the triple. Don't worry, Triumph, Yamaha and MV Agusta fans, you are not forgotten. Combining the high revving power of the Inline 4 with the lower end torque of a twin, the triple is one of the most flexible and entertaining engines for the street. It's also one of the meanest sounding. Although Triumph has altered the firing order on its latest Tigers to improve the torque curve, and that has changed their sound. Now, I've ridden a lot of motorcycles. I love the sound and vibration of my Harley, and I have to admit that I still miss the rush of opening up my Inline 4 Honda and holding on for dear life above 9,000 RPM. But I also love the compact nature of my T7 parallel twin and its V-twin power characteristics and sound, which it owes to that 270-degree crank. It's small, reliable, not expensive to manufacture, and extremely flexible, powering nakeds, sport tourers, and off-roaders. So what's your favorite engine architecture and what do you like about it? And what did I miss? Because this is a huge topic and I'm sure I didn't cover everything. Please share down in the comments, and whatever engine is pushing you forward, may it get you to where you're going reliably and safely. Take care.
If you're interested in any of the gear that Brooke and I wear or use, or the camera equipment we use to film this channel, the links are below. Everything listed there was bought with our own money and we are not sponsored by any company. However, the links below are affiliate links and the channel is paid a small amount for referring you to shop at no additional cost to you. We do not recommend any products that we are not satisfied with ourselves, but we do strongly urge you to do your research and select the correct size for items like helmets and clothing. As always, thanks for watching, your support is greatly appreciated. Please hit that subscribe button, give the video a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. And whatever you ride, enjoy it. Wave at other bikers no matter what they're riding, we're all part of a brotherhood and sisterhood. Keep the rubber side down, shiny side up, and may the spokes be with you.